One game, one win for the San Francisco 49ers. Can they keep it going against Minnesota this weekend? Hasn't exactly been a hospitable place for the 49ers to play. We'll break it all down on today's Gold Standard podcast, sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I am Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. Levin, happy Thursday.
It is a happy Thursday. My kid is back in school, so I got a little free time for the first time in like 4 months this morning.
Wow, what did you do with it?
My wife and I went to the gym. Where we could actually...
Went to the gym, huh? Is that what you're calling it these days?
I did not Shannon Sharp the gym. We actually went to the gym and we're able to work out without like watching the clock of, I need to get home, kids waiting.
What do you do at the gym?
Depends on the day, but usually I do like a little bit of lifting, nothing crazy. I don't care to bulk up. I'm pretty bulky in general. And then I get on the treadmill and walk at a 10 incline.
You don't want to get too big, right? You're one of those guys. That's why I don't.
I don't care to be like. I would never ever want to be like bodybuilder muscular. I don't look. I work a manual labor job, so I have a lot of like natural bulk just from playing sports and then working in manual labor. I don't need to bulk. I need to tone.
You need a lot more than that, but we don't have time to get into it now. 49ers 1-0, and look who's coming down the pike. Sam Darnold in Minnesota. We're going to get to that. But the first thing I want to talk about, Levin, because this was one of the games last year where the 49ers really struggled. No Deebo in that game, no Trent Williams. Yes, obviously the whole cover zero blitz before halftime. We all remember that.
Yep.
But what people might not remember is that Brock Purdy was not very good in the game. He was 21 of 30 for 272 yards, but he had one touchdown. He had 2 interceptions. He also took a sack in the game. He was not at his best, and he's going to be facing, again, same defensive coordinator in Brian Flores, who loves to blitz. So it's going to be interesting to see what Brock has learned from his defeat in Minnesota last year.
They also don't have Daniel Hunter anymore. Daniil Hunter. I never knew it was pronounced that way.
No, that's what I'm here for.
But yeah, they don't have him. I think that's a huge difference. That defense is not the same. Flores, I think, is a very good coach, but he's also somebody that takes a lot of risks in gambles, and that works until it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, they get destroyed. Same thing with Sam Darnold. He can take risks. And if it works, good for him. But when it doesn't work, it's going to be terrible. And, we can just talk about Sam Darnold because I find it hilarious. What's the narrative coming out? Oh, Sam Darnold's for real this time. He looked awesome in week 1. We're talking about 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception.
Yeah, that's the Sam Darnold dice. Whoo!
Yeah. If that's the like crazy revamped Sam Darnold finally figured it out, then like, what are we doing? People, I don't know, like if Sam Darnold behind the scenes is like the nicest guy ever to the media or what, but the guy seems to have like undying loyalty from so many people in the media that the tiniest little bit of good, they're like, oh, he figured it out. It's all over now. Sam Darnold's for real. 2 touchdowns and an interception, and he didn't even get 210 yards.
Yeah, man, he's a whole new Sam Darnold. Nice. Woo!
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute because I have more to say on that. Actually, for this week's crossover podcast, I talked with Paul Allen, who's the radio voice of the Minnesota Vikings. And he and I kind of went back and forth on this. Joe says, best show of the week, checking in from Middletown, Connecticut, not far from me. Also born in January of 85, like me, lifelong Niner fan. Are you like a body double sent here to replace me, Joe?
I was going to say, maybe that's the real son of your parents, and you guys were swapped at birth.
Oh, geez. Bazzyman says Brock was great in the game until his concussion. Like, I remember coming out of that game and everybody wanted to excuse away everything that happened with Brock Purdy because he was concussed. So that was the reason for all the bad. I don't buy it. If you're out there, you're out there and you deserve to be criticized. Brock needs to be better. I did see an interesting little nugget, though, that made me feel a little better. This comes from PFF SF 49ers. If I could actually get it on my screen. Brock Purdy excels against zone coverage, and the Vikings are a zone-heavy defense. Purdy has been the most efficient quarterback in the NFL against zone coverage. Minnesota ranks third in zone coverage rate, presenting opportunities for Purdy to capitalize on his success against those looks. So that's sort of encouraging, I guess. Like, that leads me to believe that maybe he can be better than he was last time.
It is encouraging, but I'm sorry, I'm going to have to just downplay this a little bit. He's the most efficient quarterback. He had a crazy efficient, one of the best ever seasons last year, which is obviously like 90% of his career was last year's games. He's number one against man coverage too, in terms of efficiency. So it's not like he's somebody that really, really knows zone defense. No, he's just a highly efficient quarterback because of the pairing that he has. He is somebody that's really smart, and he has probably the smartest offensive mind in the league calling his plays. So you put those two together, you get crazy efficiency against zone and man.
That is a good point. He was efficient against both last year, and he faced the Vikings last year and didn't play great in the game too. So there's that.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's my big takeaway. Like, I am more like Minneapolis. Everybody's talking about how they haven't won in Minneapolis since 1992. Mm-hmm. Well, I've attended the last two Minneapolis games other than last year. So the two previous that I attended, 5 years ago? And I attended the 2012 game that you mentioned with Grant yesterday. I have a special place of dislike for playing in Minnesota. But that said, they lost by 5 points last year. And that was with Brock having one of his worst games of the year. And that was with Kirk Cousins throwing for 378 yards. Do you think Sam Darnold's going to throw for 378 yards? And they barely won that game. I understand Justin Jefferson was out of that game, but so was Trent Williams and so was Deebo Samuel. And by the way, they won that game because of a single pass that should have been intercepted and ended up going for a crazy long touchdown at the end of the half. Travarius Ward literally had the ball in his hands, was intercepting, and allowed the receiver to not only take it, but then run and score a touchdown. So, like, they had, I don't want to call it a lucky win, but you know what I'm getting at. Like, that was a really close game, and Minnesota did a lot of things in that game that I don't see them being able to do this year.
Well, that is all true. But, like, they won the game, like the same thing could happen on Sunday. There could be fluky plays and they could still win, and we still have to take the loss.
Any given Sunday, you're not wrong.
Adam Walker, how come you always say you're not wrong? You never say you're right. Can you just say you are right for once? You always say you're not wrong. Tell the people.
Has my wife been talking to you?
I just noticed that. You always, well, you're not wrong. Like, no, you are correct. Just sit there and say you were right.
I don't know what your problem is. It's literally, as you said, that's the same thing. I'm saying you're not wrong.
I know, but it's just, I don't know. It pisses me off. Say it.
Well, now I'm going to say it every single time. So thank you for letting me know it gets under your skin.
It's like when Mandy Moore was on Scrubs and she's JD's girlfriend and he makes a joke. And every time he makes a joke, she says, "That's so funny," but she never actually laughs.
I'm not placating to you. I'm saying you're right, using a different word, I guess. I don't know. That's how I say it. Get over yourself.
Chat.
Take the compliment, Rob.
Back me up. No, it's not a compliment. That's like if I put on like a nice outfit and I was like, "Hey, how do I look?" And you're like, "Well, you don't look bad." Like, that's not the same
as. That's a terrible analogy.
Chat, back me up on this, please. Adam watching on YouTube says, Ames, Iowa is only a 3.5-hour drive to Minneapolis. There should be a good amount of ISU fans showing up to support Purdy. I didn't realize that. It's not.
He's not wrong about that. It's 3.5-hour drive.
It's not going to be a hospitable environment, though, I think, for the most part. Like, Minnesota is one of the tougher places to play. It gets very loud in there in the new stadium. So I'm expecting, Shanahan was asked about Dominic Pooney, and he was like, "Hey, Dominic Pooney's great, but, we got to see a little more. This is his first short week. It's his first road game too. Like, and that's going to be a big deal. Like, the environment there is not going to be fun for sure.
No, it is a loud stadium. The last time I went, the first game was still Metrodome. The second game I've gone to in Minnesota was the new stadium. And that was a miserable game. I don't know if you remember it, but it was a game where both games I've gone to, the Niners came out and played like absolute crap and then made a little bit of a comeback towards the end to make it somewhat close at the end, but they were never truly in it. And it was one of those games where like the ball kicks off to start the game and you're never happier. I absolutely hate that. Like, I'm paying lots of money to go. I'm not demanding a win when I go, but I want to have at least some like victorious moments within the game. And when it's like you're down double digits right away, there's none of that.
It's just like a kick in the teeth from the word go. Doug Friedrichsen says, heading to Minneapolis from Branson, Missouri. I just Googled it while you were talking because I certainly wasn't listening. It's 9 hours and 22 minutes. That is a haul, Doug. You get a gold star for that. That's crazy. I would never travel in a car that long. I mean, I traveled to San Francisco for the Dallas game last year, but that was on a plane. In a car? No.
Spoken like an East Coaster. You know how far I traveled for both those Minneapolis games? It is an 11-hour drive from where I lived in North Dakota.
Man.
And by the way, that is the closest NFL team to North Dakota. Where I lived, Denver and Minneapolis were like equidistant from each other.
Shout out to Benjamin Bear, YouTube channel member who's watching the show. We appreciate you, Benjamin, and all our YouTube channel members. Please become one. It's less than $3 a month to get custom emojis, membership badges, and priority comment response. Chillmatic, YouTube channel member, says, Rob is correct. Levin, you're not wrong, though. Comment of the day.
Pretty much, yeah. So you were correct, and we're not wrong. It's almost like those things mean the same thing.
Almost, but not quite. That is the key. Anyway, obviously, I was very excited about Jordan Mason. There seems to be a difference between what we're hearing from insiders like Ian Rappaport, who has multiple times called Christian McCaffrey a long shot to play, and what we're hearing from Christian McCaffrey himself, Levin. I don't know if you got a chance to hear Christian McCaffrey in the locker room yesterday. Here's what he said when he was asked about his
prepared to play. My mindset is I'm going to play no matter what I'm going through physically on Wednesday or Thursday practice. And then the game day, you got to make a decision.
Are you expecting a similar process this weekend?
My mentality is I'm playing this week. That's where I'm at. That's how I am every week. I'm not lying. I think as soon as a player says, maybe I'll play, maybe I won't, that's not a good mentality to go into a week with, when you're kind of on the fence. So for me, I'm ready to go.
So what do we think of Christian McCaffrey? Is he playing this week? Is he not playing? Because he seems to think he's playing.
No, that's the classic non-answer. He said no matter what he's going through on Wednesday and Thursday, his mentality is he's playing because he can't go into a week going, well, I'm not going to play and then be ready to play. Like, I get that. You have to go into the week assuming I will be good, I will heal up, I am going to play so that you get yourself ready to play. If you go into the week and go, well, there's a good chance I'm not going to play, so I'm just not going to prep. Like, that's what he's saying. Like, he preps every single week as if he's going to play. So that's not him saying I'm playing, I think I'm healthy. It's him saying he has to mentally prepare every week as if he's going to play. And I think that the full quote, when you watch those back-to-back, gives a difference than what I've seen a lot of Twitter posts, just quoting that second part where he says, I'm going to play this week. That's my mentality.
So you don't think he's going to?
I don't think he's going to play. No. I think the Niners are absolutely saying there's no reason to risk this because the risk is you tear your Achilles. And now you're not only ruined this year, but you're probably not very good next year either.
He said that he doesn't care about the artificial turf. He said if you could play on grass, you could play on turf. I'm just, providing more context. Obviously, the week after this is against the Rams, which is, more important because it's a division game. Yeah. The Rams are missing a ton of people, by the way, but that's 2 weeks down the line. And with Jordan Mason's performance, like there is way less urgency to throw Christian McCaffrey out there when Jordan Mason is coming off a 28 carry, 147-yard game against the Jets, Levin. You weren't able to join on the instant reaction show, so you and I haven't really talked about that, but holy crap, Jordan Mason.
Yeah. One, we need to get a nickname for him. I tried to, I like ones that kind of play off their names. I haven't come up with a good one. The best that's popped in my head is Hitman because he truly seeks out contact, but I don't know that really fits him. But Jordan Mason, yeah, he does ease that. Also, winning in week 1 eases that. Like if they were 0-1, Christian McCaffrey's playing this week because they can't afford to go 0-2.
Right.
The fact that they're 1-0, they can afford, even though they're not going to. Well, we're not playing Christian McCaffrey, so we're probably going to lose. No, I think they're still incredibly heavy favorites playing without Christian McCaffrey. I absolutely would not play him, even if this wasn't a turf. But this being turf is like, this is a no-brainer. I'm not risking it. Literally, turf makes this type of injury more likely to happen. And as I said, the injury that could happen is he tears his Achilles, and he's not only ruined this year, but also next year. You can't risk that.
It's funny you mentioned the spread of the game because yesterday with Grant, I said Niners are favored by 6. Go and bet it. Go to betus.com. They sponsor the show. Go run right now and bet it because by the end of the week, it's going to be even bigger. So you're going to have to give more points. So you better go out and bet it now. But lo and behold, Levin, I checked the BetUS website and now I see it's actually gone down. The Niners are favored by 5. So people were betting the Vikings, like enough people were betting the Vikings to bring the spread down. I am stunned by this. I am absolutely stunned. How is this happening?
Because that's what the narrative is this year or this week. The narrative is, Sam Darnold's actually good. And, Christian McCaffrey's probably not going to play. So a lot of your bettors, that's what they're hearing. To me, even at 6, I was hammering the Niners. I think the Niners win by double digits easily. Sam Darnold is going to turn the ball over at least twice. And as I said, it took a crazy play that you may never see again like that. It took a defensive coordinator saying, hey, this quarterback is just throwing 5-yard passes nonstop 1 second after the snap, but I'm going to still keep playing 10 yards off. I'm going to stay and prevent the entire game. And it took that quarterback throwing for 385 yards for them to win by 5 points. They're not winning this game. I would be shocked if the Vikings win this game.
So I told you to take it at 6. Obviously, I love it even more at 5. And if you're going to bet it, please bet it with BetUS. They're now offering 150% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Just use code YouTube150, YouTube150, and BetUS will take care of you. They have 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, fast and easy deposit and withdrawals. And they have a 10% get back on your net losses twice a year. So if you're going to bet, please do it with BetUS. Like I said, if you liked it at 6, take it at 5. Why the hell not, right? Make even more money. I couldn't believe it went down. I mean, maybe if they say Christian McCaffrey is going to play, it'll go back up. But I don't know how it went down. Jordan Mason just kicked the hell out of the Jets. A better defense than Minnesota, like by a lot, without Christian McCaffrey. So I was really, really shocked by that.
Now, the over-under of 46, that's pretty low. So that's also interesting. I think that's lower than average. Usually right around 48 is kind of middle ground. So 46 is a little below. That tells you that they think either this is going to be a blowout by one team to where you don't get enough combined points, or it's going to be a lower scoring game because if you give the Vikings 17, then the Niners only need 29. They don't even need 30 points, and they just put up 32 points, like you said, against the Jets, a better defense. So
and they easily could have put up more than 32.
Right.
Dropped a touchdown. They kicked 6 field goals in the game. Like it easily could have been way more.
Yeah. So if you give the Niners, say 31 points, a number that's a little more realistic to actually reach 31 points, that means you only need 16 from the Vikings to win that bet. To me, I would probably take the over. I'm not a huge betting person myself on over-unders because I think they do a very good job of picking the line. And you can be right about one aspect of it, but the other side of the ball hurts you enough to where you lose the bet. Like I said, the Niners, this is a game that the Niners could get 38 points and it still doesn't hit the over. because they could win like 38-7. That is a possible scenario. You know what I mean?
That's a kick in the teeth too, right? That just ruins like an otherwise fantastic day. JD Durham says, can the Niners retain JP Mason as a restricted free agent next year? Yes. Restricted free agency is so favored. It's so stacked in favor of the team rather than it's not really free agency. The only way restricted free agents ever actually hit free agency is if the team wants nothing to do with them. So I don't think Jordan Mason's going anywhere.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they put on him. I think the second round tender is somewhere around going to be around 3.5. Because I think didn't Jennings just get that? And it was like 3.15 or something like that this past year.
Did he get a second round?
I think he did. I can't remember exactly, but I remember his number being somewhere just over 3 million.
Second round tender. You're right.
Yeah. So I could see them going that route and saying, you know what, we're just going to play it safe and bring him back at 3 million, ensure that nobody comes and gives a poison contract. Because if you do, a lower draft pick grade, somebody might come and give him an incentive laden deal or a deal that's worth, $5-6 million per year that they can get out of easily, but the Niners aren't willing to match because the Niners won't want out of it if they match it.
Scotty D, thank you very much for the super chat. Says we'll be similar to the Jets. I assume he meant Jets. A close first quarter. Jefferson gets a big touchdown early. San Francisco takes over the game by mid third quarter. Brock sits to rest the fourth quarter. Well, the funniest thing to me was, and I was kind of shocked, Levin, they pulled Rodgers out of the game with more than 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. I was like, man, they are throwing up the white flag.
Yeah, I was shocked that he got pulled so early, but that's clear that to me, that was a Saleh saying, well, I know I'm not coming back in this game and I'm not risking losing him again for the season because then I won't be back next season.
I could see exactly what Scotty said, though. Minnesota, they've got scripted plays. Jefferson makes a big move. They go down, they get an early touchdown. And then the Niners defense says, okay, we got it. And then just locks it down the rest of the game. I don't think that's an unrealistic game script from Scotty.
How would you play it early against Darnold? Because I go back and forth. Coming after him and blitzing because he's so terrible and he panics under pressure versus just sitting back and saying, you know what? Our 4 guys are pretty good up front. We'll be okay. And our secondary is so good that he's not going to find the open spot in time. He's going to throw an interception if we drop back into coverage.
I don't think they're going to need to bring extra rushers to get pressure. I know the Vikings have some good tackles, and I get that, but I think Javon Hargrave is going to be able to get pressure. I think Bosa is going to be able to get pressure. I don't think they're going to have to bring extra rushers, and if they can get pressure with 4, then Darnold is definitely throwing a pick with 7 guys in coverage for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play it because I do feel like if it was me, I would probably send like a blitz early just to see how they pick it up. See if Darnold panics or see if they pick it up well. Give that test blitz first. And then if they pick it up well, okay, we're going to drop back into coverage because we know Darnold's not good enough to beat us if we drop back in coverage. But do a test blitz and see what happens. Like try a corner blitz. See if Darnold recognizes that the corner's coming or not.
I'm not buying the whole new Sam Darnold narrative. I'm just not.
No.
If anybody knows how to beat Sam
it's got
Darnold,
about, 72 hours left of that narrative before it's blown up?
Darnold rules.
Shawnee Chipotle, YouTube channel member, thank you very much for the super chat. Says, we haven't beaten the Vikings on the road since 1992. I know that people have been saying that a lot. It doesn't really affect this year. Most of the people playing on the 49ers, like in 1992, they weren't even born. All the people playing. What am I saying?
Was Steph born?
I don't know.
She gives you crap about being old. Was Steph alive in 1992?
Yes, I think so. Viking Jerome says these guys were still virgins in 1992. Yeah, I was because
I was 7. Yeah.
I was a proud virgin at 7 years old. Like, what are we talking about? Red Zone Gold 49 says the 49ers will win. 49ers are not the Giants. That's the thing. Like, it was the Giants. It was the Giants. I went back and rewatched the game. He had a nice deep ball to Justin Jefferson, and he had a pretty good, like, intermediate deep-ish ball on a double move from a receiver for a touchdown. 2 good throws. We've seen Darnold make some good deep throws. He had a couple in preseason that were very nice. But, like, other than that, it was all short passes. It was all passes basically to open guys. Like, it was nothing special. So again, every time Sam Darnold does something good, people are like, oh, now he's going to be good now. Now I was right. See, I knew all along he was going to be good when he came out of college. So now I'm right 7 years later. And he'll lose. And people will say, oh, well, he got down early. He had to throw those interceptions, Levin, because they were trailing.
Wow. I know one person will say that. I don't know if that will be the narrative after this game.
God, I mean, even like I talked with Paul Allen and he and I went back and forth and he was like, oh, no, you're going to see Sam Darnold. And he told me, and this interview will be up on our YouTube channel on Saturday and it'll be available for audio podcast as well. He said that there were people within the 49ers that were upset that they let Sam Darnold go in free agency, which I was surprised at. And Paul Allen's been calling Vikings games on the radio for decades. So he's got some sources around the league. Hell, Kyle Shanahan said it yesterday. Oh, we were hoping he wouldn't find a free agent home and we can bring him back. So there are people that still believe.
Sure. There are people that still believe a lot of things that have been proven false in and out of football.
Benjamin Bear says, what's the over-under on Darnold interceptions for Sunday's game? 0.5. So hammer the over for as much as you can because
I guess that's one of those lines that's like hard to do because it's going to be 0.5 almost every time. Because how do you like predict 2 interceptions? You know what I mean? Like it's a little insulting to have the over-under of 1.5.
It's 0.5 for this one. He could fail it because if he fumbles 3 times and they lose all the fumbles, he won't have the chance to throw the interception.
Just make him scramble.
Yeah, right. Because they'll just give it up like he did last year against the Rams.
Did you look at his passing chart
from week 1?
Yeah.
Yes. Why? What did you see when you?
He was 4 of 8 going to the left. He dominated going to the right. And the right would be the defense's left side. So that's an interesting contrast to what the Niners defense just saw Aaron Rodgers do.
Well, Aaron Rodgers only threw 3 passes to his right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he didn't even try to go against Mooney Ward. Whereas Sam Darnold dominated going to the right. You can see here on the YouTube feed, there's only 1 incompletion going to the right, and there's like a dozen completions, including the long touchdowns. But to the left, he was only 4 of 8, and he threw an interception and a touchdown to the left, with the touchdown being just like a short dump off in the red zone.
Now, one thing with this chart, though, if you look, I mean, look at how many of these passes to the right are within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. 4, 7, 9, 11 passes. Yeah. 11 passes within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, 3 of them behind the line of scrimmage. So, like, if he wants to live there, the 49ers will take that all day because they'll just run and chase you down and tackle. Like, they would be absolutely fine with that. I expect him to, he's going to hit I would say 1 or 2 deep passes to Justin Jefferson, I would think. But I just don't think that the 49ers are going to allow him to go up and down the field. I don't think they're going to allow what they allowed with Kirk Cousins last year. Whereas Kirk Cousins...
No, because they don't have Wilkes as a defensive coordinator playing prevent in the first quarter.
Cousins' first read was open constantly. It was all night. I rewatched the game, 11. I was getting just as frustrated.
Yeah.
Watching the game, I was like, how did they do this? And at least what we saw in week 1 with Nick Sorensen, they had the one drive where Garrett Wilson hurt him, and then they adjusted, and Garrett Wilson did nothing the rest of the night. And it was like so refreshing because how many times have we seen the other team's number 1 option just punish this team? It was like, yes, it took one drive, we flipped the switch, and then it was over.
That's what I hope happens in this game. Like, I want to see them go out and dominate. Maybe they play Christian McCaffrey thinking, well, if we get up by double digits, maybe we pull him in the second half. But I want to see Christian McCaffrey not play. Like, I don't even want to risk it. I don't care if he has 0 pain come Sunday. I'm not risking it. There's no need. I want to see more, honestly, of Jordan Mason, too. Can he do it back-to-back games?
Yeah, I would like to see that. And what I talked about with Grant, too, is like, you don't even need to give Jordan Mason 27 carries or 28 carries, whatever it was. Give him, 20 and let Isaac Guerrero take the other carries. Like you don't have to turn Jordan Mason into the workhorse now. We can share the love a little bit. I don't think the offense would lose anything with Guerrero back there.
No, but I do want to see what Mason can do. Give him 20 carries. See if he can do it in back-to-back games so that all right, we do have this where this guy can be counted on and relied upon so that maybe you don't utilize, even when Christian McCaffrey gets healthy, don't utilize him as much as you did last year. Limit his touches. That's what I want to personally see, as long as you're capable of doing that. Obviously, if the Niners are 2-1 or they're 3-2 later in the season or whatever, to where their playoffs aren't as locked in, then you need to give Christian McCaffrey as much as you can.
Right.
But as long as they stay ahead of this game and with the record, I want to see Christian McCaffrey get limited touches all season so that he is completely fresh to have 30 touches in the playoffs, if that's what you need based on how the game goes. I want to see Christian McCaffrey only play 12, 13 games this year. Give him rest during the long period where he's had to play 4 or 5 games in a row, just to make as much as you can protect that Achilles tendon.
And, be mindful of like short week turnarounds and things like that.
Exactly.
Absolutely keep that in mind. Scotty D says, is it just me or does Levin look like Brock Purdy's dad? Could be twins. Rob could be Chris Collinsworth's son. Well, first of all, if you're watching on the YouTube stream, that's Sean Purdy on the left, Brock Purdy's dad. I don't know if I see it. Maybe if he had blonde hair, but he's got like darker hair. So maybe, I guess, if his hair was a little bit lighter, I would say you look like him. I don't see it.
My hair was black. It is now half gray.
So I don't agree with that. And I definitely don't look like Jack Collinsworth. Like, no, I'm sorry. I look like a lot.
I see what he's getting at with the Chris Collinsworth son thing. You guys, you don't look like Chris Collinsworth, but you have like a very slender face.
Right.
You got the black hair, similar facial structure. So you could be his son. He's not saying that you're Jack Collinsworth, his actual son. He's not saying you're the twin of that. He's saying you look like somebody that could be a son of Chris Collinsworth, is what I took that as.
Okay. I suppose that's a little different. The oval head, that's what gets people. There are a lot of people that look like me. That's Jack Collinsworth if you're watching on the stream. I don't see it. He's also,
I never realized that was his son.
He's also way more successful than me. I'd just like to point that out.
Yeah? Does he work for himself and get to work out of his basement?
No, he gets to be on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, but look who you get to work with.
Exactly my point. Viking Jerome says the Niners defensive line didn't get 1 sack the last time we played you. I agree, Jerome. That was the frustrating part because the coverage never gave them any time to get home because they were so soft all the time. It was infuriating. I was sitting there saying, like, you got to give these guys a chance. It's one thing, like last week, Aaron Rodgers got rid of the ball in 2.33 seconds, which was like lightning fast. And Nick Bosa still had 5 pressures, which is amazing. That's one thing, right? There's nothing you can do about that. But when the Vikings game last year, all the coverage was just soft. So it was Kirk Cousins could easily get rid of the ball. And we never saw any adjustments. I don't think they're going to do that. I think the Niners are going to be tight press, man coverage, especially in big downs and big situations, because they want Sam Darnold to start seeing ghosts again. So
Sam Darnold, that's one of the things I looked at prior to us coming on. He had 2.91 seconds time to throw in week 1, which was the 6th highest. And the only people above him were scramblers. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, those types were the only people that had more. That is a statistic. I really, really, really hate when somebody uses that statistic to say, look how good that offensive line was. And it's somebody like Kyler Murray. I actually heard that this week. Somebody was saying, oh, the Arizona Cardinal offensive line is much improved because Kyler Murray had 3+ seconds to pass. It's like, no, when a quarterback is running around and scrambling and then throws a pass after 6 seconds, that counts as time to throw. So that statistic is very unreliable for mobile quarterbacks. It's reliable for pocket passers because they're not capable of doing that. So they can't skew it. You know, when Patrick Mahomes has a single play where he scrambles around and then throws the ball after 8 seconds, that gives him like 3 or 4 plays worth of super quick throws before it gets back to being a low number.
Exactly. It totally influences the rest of the data 1,000%. Cynthia, YouTube channel member. Cynthia is in just about every single stream we do, says one of my favorite shows. Thank you very much for the generous super chat. We do appreciate that. Bazzyman says Sam Darnold was mentored by Kyle Shanahan, Brian Griese, and Brock Purdy for 1 year. So he will be a far better version of himself. Won't give him the win over the Niners, though.
Yeah, he was a much better version of himself, but he needed the offseason to get there. Week 17 last year doesn't count. That doesn't count. He needed the offseason to kind of put it together.
I'm stunned by this, but hopefully the 49ers go out and dominate, and then maybe we could put this narrative down a little bit. But people want to keep believing, so that's fine. Do you think that the 49ers will be able to slow down Aaron Jones like they were able to slow down Breece Hall? Because that was one of the most encouraging things for me, Levin. They stuffed the Jets run game, and Breece Hall is really good.
Yeah, I think that they will be able to shut it down because what I saw from Malik Collins is he destroys that interior offensive line on run plays. That's the big difference. I hate to say it, but it's a huge upgrade from what Eric Armstead was doing. I'm not sure Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave were a good pairing. I don't think they complemented each other, and we saw that. Like the interior defensive line really struggled last year running the ball. Whereas in week 1, we saw Malik Collins destroying and collapsing, getting to the inside to cover up the first hole constantly, and that allowed Hargrave to do better as well. I saw multiple plays from Hargrave where he was penetrating through the designed run hole, and I didn't see that but maybe a few times all of last year.
Yeah, he said, Hargrave said he didn't really figure out the defense until the end of last year when he was banged up. This year, obviously, he's healthy. They say he lost weight, whatever. They always say that, but he did look better in week 1 than I thought he looked much of last year. And the Malik Collins thing is somebody that, again, going back to that Paul Allen interview that'll be up later this week, he specifically mentioned Collins to me, like, how did the 49ers get this guy? And remember, the Niners were initially going to trade Eric Armstead for Malik Collins to Houston. And then when Houston signed, now I can't remember who it was. I think it was Daniil Hunter, actually. I could be wrong about that, but they signed somebody in free agency, and then they were like, well, we don't really need to trade for Eric Armstead anymore, so they just cut him. And the Niners were like, okay, we will take him for nothing. Thank you very much. And at least for 1 week, the revamped defensive line looked good. It was very encouraging. It just reminded me, we got back to stuffing the run. Now you have to pass. You're forced to pass. The defensive line can get pressure. And we're going to, once you complete your short pass, because you're worried about the pressure, we are just going to lock you down, chase and tackle. And that was what we saw for so many games with Robert Saleh and so many games with D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, it's an unbeatable setup if you're capable of doing it.
Right.
If the Niners can stop the run this year, you're not going to beat them easily at all. It would take some kind of miraculous plays to be able to beat them, because if they can stop the run on early downs, 3rd and longs is the worst possible place to be against this defense.
You know, we were just talking about the defensive line, and it made me think of this comment from Nick Bosa. I thought this was interesting. This is yesterday, Bosa in the locker room.
I think we're playing a better, honestly, a better team that's they're playing better football, it looks like, and they run the ball well, and we're going to have to be better in our techniques. We kind of got away with some things last week. So yeah, we have to hone in and not pat ourselves on the back.
So he didn't want to say it because he was worried about creating a soundbite, but he's basically the Vikings are better than the Jets, and the fact that they dominated the Jets, getting away with some things, as he put it, that's impressive. But I like that he was like, let's chill out. Let's not feel ourselves, because we know that they started believing their own press clippings last year after that Dallas game. So hopefully they got a little more perspective this year.
Let's hope, because, I mean, you've had plenty of chances to learn lessons over the last handful of years. And I think the overall obvious lesson is don't count your chickens before they've hatched, because there's been 2 Super Bowls that you're like, all right, they're up, they've won, and then they end up not winning the Super Bowl. And as you mentioned last year, they admitted to kind of smelling themselves a little bit and thinking that they had everything figured out, and then they had that 3-game losing streak after the Cowboys game. So hopefully they stay locked in all year long, and we get a holiday season where they're like 13-1, and we don't have to stress a whole lot.
Oh, that would be nice, especially after they got their ass handed to them on Christmas last year. Bazzyman says, hopefully Nick's comment doesn't get Saleh fired. Basically said the Jets weren't ready and up to snuff. I mean, That is a damning comment from Bosa. Basically, like, hey, we weren't even doing what we were supposed to, and we kicked the hell out of them.
I mean, yes, that ends up falling on Saleh, but I think those in the know blame Aaron Rodgers. Hey, I was injured all last year. I'm going to sit out all of training camp and off season and not do any of these working and getting on the same page. And, what's one of the hardest things to get on the same page and everybody to kind of lock in on? Changing your protections based on what you're seeing pre-snap.
The other thing that I thought was encouraging too was Rodgers' whole game was get up to the line of scrimmage, see what the defense is, run the play clock down, make any adjustments, and then I will attack. And in theory, what that is supposed to do is no matter what the defense calls, it's supposed to put the offense in the perfect position to counter it. And Rodgers was trying to do that, and he really couldn't. He did it for one drive, and that was about it. The Niners got up on them to the point where Rodgers really couldn't run the play clock down every play because they needed the time to try to come back in the game. But even with one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league trying to dissect this defense and pick it apart, he still really only found success on one drive. So that was encouraging too. I said before the year, I thought this defense could be much improved from last year, and I still feel that way.
Absolutely. It's a really weird spot to be. Hey, this defense that's been great for many years in a row, top 5 for a few years in a row, could be better. Oh, and this offense that led the league in touchdowns and scored on the highest percentage of drives of any team in the NFL last year could be better as well. Like, on one hand, like, if you're somebody that doesn't really know the Niners that well, like another team's fan or something, and you hear somebody say that, you're going, what a homer. But in reality, that's a very logical place to be, that the offense and the defense can both be improved, even though both of them were really, really good last year.
I saw a tweet from Valerie Gonzalez, who watches a lot of the streams and follows me, and I thought she made a good point. Because, yes, the offense was good, but I think the difference between Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey is in the red zone. She tweeted, the Niners offense scored a touchdown 68% of the time when they reached the red zone last season. Last night, obviously against the Jets, only 40% of the time. So when he gets back, the offense is going to be lethal, she wrote. I think that is the difference between Mason and McCaffrey. It's not necessarily between the 20s, although it does look a little different, but they still have success. But I think when you really feel McCaffrey's influence is when you get down in that scoring area because of all the gravity that he has and how they can move him around and he affects the rest of the defense. Let's be honest. The defense doesn't really care if Jordan Mason motions out of the backfield and into the slot.
No, so this is something I actually noticed during the game and really watched for. Like, it was a thought that occurred to me when I heard Christian McCaffrey was out. What are they going to do when they get into the red zone? And I noticed they didn't run. When they did run, Jordan Mason scored. When they ran with Deebo Samuel, they scored, but they tried it on a gimmick that almost didn't work. I mean, Deebo, if it wasn't Deebo, he probably doesn't score. Almost nobody else in the league scores the touchdown that Deebo scored. But they seem to go away from trying to just hammer it in. Whereas last year, yeah, Christian McCaffrey had plenty of receiving touchdowns, but really they were just like, okay, we're going to run and until we can't, and on third down, maybe we'll pass. They didn't do that in the first game. They came in and they tried gimmicks and they tried to pass. So it's almost like Shanahan wasn't fully confident that the offensive line was just going to dominate the Jets the way that they actually did, or that he didn't necessarily trust Jordan Mason in the red zone. So I don't necessarily put that on a Christian McCaffrey effect. I put that on what the play calling was in the red zone.
Interesting. That's something I'm going to be on the lookout for in week 2. I hadn't realized that, but I definitely will. Daza with the super chat. Thank you very much. Says, given our reasonably easy schedule till the Chiefs game, aside from the Rams, do we really need to rush Christian McCaffrey back? Surely we can beat the Seahawks and the Rams without Christian McCaffrey. If you are looking at the screen right now, you see the 49ers schedule, and I'm just going to remove the super chat just so everybody can see it fully. Week 1 at the Jets, the Vikings, Rams, Patriots, Cardinals, weeks 3, 4, 5. Very winnable games, all of those by the 49ers.
That better win week 4. That's all I got to say.
Right. I mean, and the Rams, I mentioned it before. Matthew Stafford is banged up. Matthew Stafford was hit 11 times in week 1.
Matthew Stafford hasn't been not banged up for 4 years.
I know, Puka Nacua is not going to play in the game. He's on injured reserve. Joe Noteboom, their left tackle.
Did you see the update to him also being on IR?
Who?
From yesterday, Puka?
No.
The reports are that he will not be back at the minimum 4 games. So it sounds like it's a much more serious injury. It's not just all right, we're putting him on IR and in 4 to 5 weeks he'll be back.
That's my fault because I drafted him on my fantasy team. So I did that.
I don't wish injury on anybody, but in retrospect, thank you for drafting him. That hurts the divisional team.
Yeah, I mean, although I have to say Cooper Kupp looked like Cooper Kupp old in week 1, so that's still a concern. Lettuce49 says Johnny Dell's on X has a great defensive breakdown for Monday Night Football. Compares and contrasts Wilkes versus Sorensen. Great Purdy highlight too. Highly recommend. I love Johnny Dell's. I actually didn't see that. Did you see it, Levin?
I saw parts of it. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I've been watching Johnny Dell's stuff going all the way back to 49ers Web Zone message board, where I don't know if he still is. I'm not really in the message boards anymore. But he used to always post like big game breakdowns in the message board there.
Oh, you were following Johnny Dell's before it was cool. Is that what you just gave us?
Not really. I was following it before he actually went and created that channel, and that channel has helped him. Like, he's definitely somebody to follow. He does great breakdowns.
He actually absolutely does great breakdowns.
What I'm saying is he's smarter than you.
Well, that's not a high bar. Let's be honest. All right, let's do a little fill in the blank. It's our feature that we do every week on this show. If you don't know, I come up with sentences and there's something missing. Levin has to fill it in. He has not heard these ahead of time, so I get to spring them on him live. First one, Levin, fill in the blank. The thing from week 1 that the 49ers can continue going forward is what?
Running to the right. I think they ran to the right more than they usually would because Trent Williams was not 100%. I mean, he literally needed an IV. So I think they ran to the right to try to conserve him so that they weren't running behind him, that he wouldn't have to be 10 yards downfield blocking quite as frequently. So I do think that they're going to shift back to running to the left more. But in years past, they've been dominant running to the left and below average running to the right. I feel like they can be at least average, if not above average, running to the right now. So that gives them an extra wrinkle that teams, once again, have to account for, that makes them spread the whole field. They can't just assume, all right, it's going left.
Our own Steph Sanchez tweeted, it's just a 1-game sample, but the Niners ran to the right on 64% of their runs in week 1. In 2023, they ran to the right the least of any team, only 41% of the time. And then she said, is this the Dominic Pooney effect? My point on this stat is, who cares why they ran to the right? Whether they ran to the right to save Trent Williams or whether they ran to the right because Dominic Pooney was there. What matters is it worked. Yeah. They were successful running to the right. So they, whether they want to do it this week again to help Trent or just whatever, but like the fact that they can have success on either side is what's so encouraging to me, because they were very, very predictable in that area last year. And if they have that option now, that just makes this offense even harder to stop.
And by the way, this has been a thing, not just last year. The Niners have been much more successful running to the left the entirety of Kyle Shanahan's time here. Now, part of that was Joe Staley, but after Joe Staley retired and Trent Williams replaced him, it got even bigger of a disparity where they were more successful going to the left than the right. That's something that I used to use NFL Savant to look at every couple of weeks to see the update of, all right, are they still dominating running to the left versus running to the right? And that's always been the trend, is that they're better running to the left. So part of that, I think, is a Kyle Shanahan thing. Maybe his play calling is just, he's better at timing. I don't know, but that's always been a thing, but it's gotten even more of a thing as that right side became such a problem with the offensive line. And now with Dominic Pooney, maybe it's not so much of a problem, so they can get back to being a little bit more balanced.
If you're watching on the stream right now, you can see the Jordan Mason carry chart. I mean, there's runs all over the place. It looks pretty even. It is not really favoring one side or the other. It is beautiful to see. It makes me weep. I agree with you, but for the sake of the little feature that we're doing here, I will say the thing from week 1 that the 49ers can continue going forward is stuffing the running game. Now, they might not be as successful in week 2 as they were in week 1, because I think Aaron Jones is good. And he actually, when I rewatched the Vikings game, he looked very good against the Giants. But I believe in what the 49ers have up front. I think that Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, I think that they are just playing the run much better. I think that Minnesota is going to want to try and run the ball early to establish it. So I think the 49ers will be prepared for it. And I think that it's going to be more of the same. I believe in what they're doing up there. I think they have, I don't want to say all of their issues against the run last year were because of the disconnect between the front and the coverage, but I think it helps. And I think that they're now doing on defense exactly what basically Fred Warner wants. And I think they're going to continue that in week 2.
I hope you're not wrong about that.
Okay, so that's a little different, right? Like that's slightly better. Next up on fill in the blank, Levin, blank won't hold up from week 1.
Brandon Ayuk struggling?
Oh, see, that's like the old, what's your biggest weakness in a job interview? Oh, I care too much. That's what you did right there. You gave the care too much answer.
I don't know, like what they did in week 1 is what I expected from this team. So I don't know that there's too many like, well, that's definitely not going to continue. They're not going to make 6 field goals every game. I can say that one.
Hopefully not.
I mean, you can expand it to the whole passing game. The passing game will have more yards and a little bit more success than what they had. They were lacking that deep ball. And I think that was a Brandon Ayuk as well as the Sauce Gardner effect.
That's fair. I think that Ayuk will be better. I think you could clearly tell he was not himself. He was catching the ball with his body, which I feel like he never does. He said the conditioning wasn't too bad, but I got to imagine like it's got to feel some kind of way when you haven't been in training camp and you haven't been doing preseason. And then all of a sudden you get thrust into Monday Night Football. You know, Chris Forster said last year, the most tired he's ever seen players is after the first drive of the regular season, because you have not faced that real intensity on every single snap. And so like your body has to adjust to that. Well, Brandon Ayuk hasn't even had like the fake intensity of the preseason or training camp. So that had to be quite a shock to the system.
Yeah, actually, I think it was the Tom Brady game. I watched the Tom Brady game, and then I watched, I think, the Steelers game, plus obviously the Niners game. That was my first week. I think it was Tom Brady that really harped on week 1 into the game. Your players are going to be gassed. Your offensive linemen are going to be gassed. They're going to be puffing air, and your defense is going to be able to be run on because they're going to be gassed. And then the game went to overtime, and he was like, whoever it was, I can't remember if it was the Brady game or not that went to overtime, but the color guy of the game said, whatever team gets this ball is probably going to score a touchdown because the defense is going to be so gassed with it being week 1.
It wasn't the Brady game because Brady did the Cowboys-Browns and Cowboys smoked them. I'm going to say this. I'm going to weasel my way out of this because it doesn't specifically say that it applies to the 49ers. So I'm going to say Tom Brady being bad at announcing will not hold up from week 1. I don't know how much.
I have to say, like I said, I watched that game. He was bad.
He was bad. Like it wasn't. It's a hard job. I want to be fair. Like
it is.
You shouldn't judge anybody on one game. It is super hard to do. Even if you're Tom Brady, even if you have all this knowledge, like he clearly knows the game. He knows the players. He knows the information. It's not about that. It's about being able to quickly analyze what you see. It's being able to come up with something interesting in 2 seconds after the play is over. And it's being able to deliver that interesting thing that you just thought of in about 10 to 15 seconds. It's not easy at all.
I think a lot. That's what I specifically went to school for. And we used to all agree, all of us that were trying to do that for our careers. Announcing, especially color, but also play-by-play, is something that a lot of people can be good at. They can do a good enough job. It's very, very, very hard to be great at it, because to be great, there is a certain aspect that is 100%. It has to be just natural talent that came to you. The ability to just talk and constantly come up with words that work without really having to think it, because otherwise it sounds forced. You can tell when somebody's forcing it, and that's what it came off to me. As Brady was trying to force it. I think he was trying to think too much to be, and he was trying to be perfect too much rather than letting it come naturally. So there's a certain aspect that's natural, but then also to be great, you got to be obsessive about it. You know, like I went to a broadcasting thing that the Pacers put on when I was in college, where you got to meet the broadcasters, you know, the guy that says boom baby, one of the most famous calls in the NBA. And he talked about his game prep, and he showed us the card that he,
Oh, those are great.
yeah, it's the card he makes for every single game, which is 82 games in the NBA, and prints and laminates every time. And it was like the tiniest bit of writing, and it was literally hundreds of things, because it was every single player. It was statistical factoids about the player, and then like biographical factoids about the player, so that he always had the info in front of him. That takes a ton of prep, and that's something that a lot of people that I think they get into it, especially former players, don't realize. They think, well, I know the sport, I can just talk about it, it'll come natural. And they don't do the crazy prep like that, and then it shows up in the games, because it's one of those things that I think is harder for like the average fan to verbalize why somebody wasn't good, but they just know it when they hear it.
And that is why, if you look, a lot of the best analysts are not the best players. They're the players that had to grind it out, because you need to apply that kind of work ethic to that job. Now, I think that Brady's work ethic is legendary. He's going to put in the work. I know he's going to put in the work. He will get better. But week one was shaky. There were so many pauses of dead air where the play-by-play guy, and I apologize, I can't remember who it was, but would lay out and give Brady space to break down the game, and Tom wouldn't say anything. And it was just like, oh man, it was awkward. Now he's going to have plenty of reps, and I'm sure he'll be better. But, you know, if I'm Greg Olsen, I'm sitting there watching, it's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have pulled me out of the number one spot. Maybe you could have given Tom some reps, with one of the lesser teams, and then we would have been fine.
Greg Olsen started out really well. He did that Steelers game that I watched, and I didn't realize it was him at first. It was about halftime, and I was thinking, God, this color guy constantly keeps saying the wrong thing that's not true. And then I realized at halftime, because they called him Greg, and then I think the play-by-play at one point said, you played a long career at tight end, because they were talking about the tight ends. I was like, is that really Greg Olsen? Oh my goodness, has he gotten bad?
Jeez, I didn't watch much of that. I was watching Red Zone for a lot of the day, so I didn't specifically catch that.
I try not to watch that. I end up watching it more and more as the season goes on. But when I watch Red Zone, I feel like I lose the narrative of the games. You lose the story. All you're seeing is highlights, and you lose the story of the games, and that's what I love. And so this year I told myself I'm going to be disciplined, because usually I start out and I'll start watching a game, and then it will go to commercial, or it will be boring in the first quarter, and I'll be like, all right, I'm going to the Red Zone. And this year I said, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to watch actual games, because I miss the ebb and flow and the story that's told throughout watching the game.
Now, old man yells at cloud. That's you, Levin.
I'm not yelling at a cloud. I'm not saying watching the Red Zone is wrong.
A couple more fill in the blanks here. Blank will lead the 49ers in touches this week.
Jordan Mason.
You think it's going to be Mason again?
Yeah, I don't think McCaffrey's playing.
You don't think it's going to be Deebo?
No, because Jordan Mason, they're going to be up in this game. He's going to have 20-plus touches, and Deebo's not going to get to 20-plus.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Deebo carry the ball at all anymore. It does not work.
Well, on the end arounds and stuff, I feel like he can still do some damage. But the straight-up Deebo in the backfield, and did you notice, by the way, I tried to ask JT O'Sullivan about this, they still do that motion where the guy is like 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage that JT O'Sullivan hates, but now they're handing it off to that guy. Yeah. They did it with Deebo, and I think they did it with Mason a couple of times too. I wanted to get his thoughts on that, just because he hates that so much. But
you can see the one play that got blown up, where Deebo broke like 3 tackles just to get a 1-yard loss.
Trick play.
If you watch a zoomed out version, and it's actually shown best, I've seen both, but the best angle for it is actually just showing the dots. That I think it's Next Gen that does the dots.
Yep.
And you can see the players react to Deebo, because before Deebo even has the ball in his hands, when he's just coming off the line, you see one of their linebackers and one of their defensive linemen stop pursuing to the left and start going to the right when nobody's there. Deebo doesn't even have the ball. He's not even coming that direction with the ball yet. And yet they are already going there, because they're saying there's a chance Deebo gets this ball, because he's running towards the backfield as if he could get the ball. So it's clear defenses are keen on, if Deebo goes in motion or after the snap into the backfield, we're treating it as if he's getting the ball and we're protecting that backside.
Yeah, if you're watching on the stream, I just threw up
57 on this is Mosley, and you can see he's like right in the center at the start, and he just, before Deebo even gets the ball, he starts coming down to the left or
Deebo.
on the right. Right, yeah, right there. You see how he just ignores, and the Brock Purdy goes to clear
Yeah.
out, and
about
Mosley ignores him.
Brock Purdy. That's the play we heard about, the trick play that they were running. Brock runs out like he's gonna catch a pass. I don't want it. Like, why did you do? I couldn't believe they called that. You had the best drive of the game, and they called that play. It was very, very weird to me. But anyway,
Mosley's the one that blew that play up, made Deebo go back the other direction, and it's because he literally broke and was running into what would be the offense's right side of the backfield that was supposed to be cleared out before Deebo even has the ball on the left side to come on a reverse over there. It's very clear that they either knew that that was a possibility of a play, or that they're just flat out saying, I see Deebo going from the left, coming towards the right. I'm headed there.
I'm going to say that Deebo will lead the 49ers in touches this week.
You would.
I think that, look, Kyle didn't have him last time. He's going to have him this time. And I think there's a little bit of like, well, I'll show everybody that if I had Deebo, we would have won that game last year. So I will go with that for my fill in the blank there. A couple more super chats I want to get to, and we like to get to all of them here. Daza 0187 YouTube channel member says, is Devondre Campbell really that much better than D Winters? I'd rather our younger players get more playing time. Problem is D Winters is hurt, so they don't have a choice right now.
I think Winters, when he gets healthy, which might be this week, will end up being the one that plays more.
Winters has an ankle. He did not practice yesterday, which that's a big deal. That tends to lead me to believe he won't play. We still don't really know because he got hurt in the last preseason game, and then he had an MRI, but Kyle Shanahan never really told us, like, we just know it's an ankle. Is it high ankle sprain? Is it? I don't know, but waiting to see him. Frank Tom Ocean, YouTube channel member, says, great content stats. Keep up the good work. Appreciate that. I appreciate all our YouTube channel members and everybody here watching the stream. Almost little over 300 people watching right now. Bazzyman says, what did you think about the Manning cast with Belichick? Excuse me. I went back and watched it, Levin. Belichick does the first half of all the game. And it was a little choppy because there's three people. None of them are in the same room. Plus, there's clearly a delay. And so they're talking over each other a lot of the times. That was really annoying and frustrating. But I did take some notes. Peyton Manning talked about partying with Kyle after losing the Super Bowl. And Eli Manning was like, why did you go to that party? That's pretty lame. And then Eli was also with Belichick like, hey, you know, I don't know what it's like to party after losing a Super Bowl, which was always appreciated. But it was really cool to hear Belichick like break down the game and talk about the 49ers and what they were doing defensively. I want more of it, frankly. Like, I hope that, I don't think they're going to do another Niners game, unfortunately, but I wish they would just keep it to football and stop with all the celebrity guests, because to me, hearing those guys just break it down is fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. I wish they would make it more like just, but I don't think ESPN wants that. They don't want it to be as much of a just here, watch the game this way, and these guys are announcing the game and reacting to it. They don't want that because that competes with the main broadcast. They want something that's different. It's just, I think at this point it was a novelty that was cool, but now you've kind of run out of really cool people to bring on, and so the guest quality is going down. In terms of Peyton Manning's reaction to Brandon Ayuk, I actually laughed when I heard it.
Oh,
I know exactly what that anger is, and that is his own selfishness. Because as a quarterback, and I remember this growing up in Indiana, he would get pissed if a player wasn't in practice because he ran a timing offense. Everything was timing, and the only way he got that timing was doing hundreds and hundreds of reps with every single wide receiver he had. So his anger there is because from his own experience, if a wide receiver held out that whole time, he's somebody that doesn't care about another person's money at all. He has never cared about that. What he cared about was being winning. You know, he was obsessive about that, and that took timing with his wide receiver. So that's where that anger came from to me.
Yeah, but it's like it's easy for you to tell somebody to take
Well,
less.
I know, like, I don't think it was a good spot for him to go. Although I
Yeah.
will say, like, if you actually listen to what he says, he doesn't specifically say Ayuk fault. You know, he
Yeah.
doesn't say Ayuk should have accepted the contract they gave him. He just said that's why you get your guys in. That's why you get in camp. So he didn't specifically blame Ayuk. I take it as he's probably blaming Ayuk, but he didn't say it. So maybe he's just saying that's why you pay the guy. Because Marvin Harrison got paid, Reggie Wayne got paid. He didn't have to deal with that because the Colts paid the guys that Peyton Manning wanted paid.
And Eli right before said, "Oh, he's a little rusty. He missed camp." Like Eli just poking the bear to get the reaction out of it. I thought it was funny. Like they both said after that throw at the same time in unison. They said, "Oh, what a throw!" I was like, "Damn, you just made both Manning brothers compliment." And it was a dot from Purdy for sure. Ayuk even admitted it yesterday. JCG 1987 YouTube channel member. Can we get Garendo to do the fourth down conversions? What fourth down conversions? Kyle ain't going for it on fourth down. He did it again, Levin. And I've been holding this in because they won by so many, but I can't do it anymore. He did it again. Fourth quarter, it was either late third or fourth quarter of the game. 49ers get down. They're at the 5-yard line. The 5-yard line, and it is 4th and 1. And you have a chance to take a 2-possession game and make it a 3-possession game and basically end it. And what does Kyle Shanahan do on 4th and 1 at the 5-yard line? He trots Jake Moody out there for a 23-yard field goal. I don't understand it. There was 9:43 left in the game. What are you afraid of? You fail and then Aaron Rodgers takes over from the 5? Come on.
Well, the funny thing is, he lined up. Was that the one that he lined up to go for it? And then there was a timeout or something that stopped the play and they changed it. When they came back, they're like, oh, now they're taking the field goal.
So what happened? I think what happened was the Jets were trying to substitute. So Brock Purdy ran up to the line of scrimmage like he was going to snap it. And Saleh didn't want to get a 12 men on the field, which is actually a really good like heads up play to get them to burn a timeout. I'm fine with that. But then to trot the field goal kicker out, like if you kick the field goal, you keep a 2-score game, a 2-score game. And I get it. If he kicks the field goal and makes it, then you need 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions and you're still tied. But I just feel like, again, that's coaching to avoid the worst case scenario instead of coaching to win the game. And when you get in the big games against the elite quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, you have to play to take the game. You can't play just not to lose it. And Kyle still doesn't get that.
No, he doesn't. And he's never going to get it. By the way, the worst case scenario is not you're up 16 and the other team scores 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions in your tie. The worst case scenario that he never thinks about is you miss the field goal and they go down and win the game with 2 touchdowns and 2 extra points. That's the worst case scenario.
This was a 23-yard field goal. So if he really missed that, that would be scary. Dave 184 Infantry, YouTube channel member, says, Stats, you complained in the instant reaction about Kyle not going for it. Not as much as I wanted to, though. That's the key. Not as much as I wanted to. All right. Is there anything else about this game that you want to dive into before we wrap it up?
No, because it should not be a close game. There's really not much to talk about. The Vikings played maybe the worst team in the league. It would be a team that I would say is definitely the worst team in the league if it was not for the Carolina Panthers somehow being even worse than last year.
Yeah, they look really bad. Bryce Young just looks like he's
completely overmatched.
Yeah, he looks over his skis. And I hate to say it, I don't root for anybody to fail unless it's Sam Darnold. He looks bad. He looks bad. And then they just had to put Derek Brown on IR with a knee. Like, oh, it's
going to go down as one of the worst all-time draft decisions. Because they had to choose between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And they could not be doing any more opposite in terms of quality of play. CJ Stroud is literally crowned as a top 5 quarterback already because he had one of the best rookie years of all time. And Bryce Young looks as bad as a number 1 pick has ever looked, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I hope he can turn it around, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Click the bell so you'll get notified every single time we go live. We're live every weekday. We're live after every single game. Speaking of, Levin, are you going to be joining us on the Instant Reaction Show this week?
No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Let me
1
tell you.
o'clock Eastern.
It's a 1 o'clock start. I'm working daylights. I don't get home till 6. So it's a 1 o'clock start for the Eastern, by the way. So that's what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
10 a.m. start out Pacific. I get off at work at 6 p.m., 3 p.m. Pacific. So that would be like right as you're finishing an instant reaction, most likely.
Well, you're terrible.
Yeah, I know. I told you that this year it really bothers me because I'm missing weeks 1 and 2. I'll be available week 3. Week 4, I'm at the game. I'm going to the week 4 game.
Patriot
Week
game.
5, I'm still on vacation doing a West Coast National Park tour to where I will be in. I think I will have just arrived first day in Olympic National Park. So in terms of quality of internet, I'm just guessing it will probably not be good enough. I'll be in the middle of nowhere. So it looks like 1 out of the first 5 games. I haven't even looked at the schedule for 6 to know for sure I can be there week 6.
Sweet. Way to let everybody down.
Yeah. Well, hey, at least I just don't show up. I don't show up and have 2 microphones going.
I think I'm going to institute a rule. Seriously, no AirPods. If you do a show on our network,
I texted him like when he was trying to figure it out, saying AirPods specifically have a bug where the microphone, even though you don't have it in your settings to be getting used, Apple sucks as a company and has the microphone getting used, but it's not every time. It's an inconsistent bug, but it's where the microphone of it reads because you're using the audio of it. It goes, oh, you must be in a phone call. So it turns the mic on and you have it in your settings of StreamYard where you can select what microphone am I using. And even though you don't have the AirPod selected, it will use it. So the key is get a very cheap Bluetooth headphone set that doesn't have a microphone built in.
and a lot of people thought I was a jerk to Vish because I told him he couldn't be on the show. But the number one thing that determines whether people listen to a podcast is audio quality. And if there's an echo, it's too much of an effort to listen. The last thing
I would turn it off. I'm not supporting you if you got an echo. I don't care, Rob.
Exactly. Like I apologize to everybody and to Vish, but look, I got to do what I got to do. This is sort of my job here. It is my job. So hopefully we're going to have a new rule. I don't care if I have to buy the headphones for people. I will buy them. That's fine. But
I should go shopping.
No AirPods on the show. That's going to have to be a rule. Before we go, I just want to give a special shout out and a special thank you again to BetUS for sponsoring this video. Once again, if you want to sign up for BetUS, use promo code YouTube150. Take the Niners, give the points, smash the Sam Darnold over on interceptions, and have yourself a damn good Sunday. Levin, I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.